Hi, it's Elizabeth Willits here from Investing in Women, and welcome to everybody that is starting to log on to watch this week's Facebook and LinkedIn Live. Happy Tuesday. It's a bit cold today, but welcome everyone as you're logging on. If you can let us know if you can hear us all okay. This week, I'm delighted because I'm going to be chatting with women's leadership coach, Alice Darbyshire, and we're going to be talking all about how self-care and self-compassion can transform your life. So we're live today, this Tuesday, on Facebook and LinkedIn, talking more about how self-care and self-compassion can transform your life. So do let us know if you can hear us all right. If you're starting to view, give us a like or an emoji, drop in the chat and say hello. That would be fabulous. Yeah, so we were just chatting before we went live about the importance of self-care and self-compassion. So I'm really, really excited to welcome you, Alice, to this week's live. So thank you so much for being here. So before we jump into self-care and self-compassion, do you want to introduce yourself, explain who you are and what you do?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. So in short, my mission is to get more mums into leadership.
Yeah.
And as you can probably imagine, this is a very complex and emotive beast, which sometimes get a bit sticky. But essentially, I work within businesses to help them to think about and hopefully change how they manage and support women and mums in particular through kind of leadership and manager training and one-to-one coaching and stuff like that. And we're often addressing things like the gender pay gap, gender diversity, maternity discrimination, that sort of stuff. But I also work directly with the women, either funded by the business or funded by themselves, to support them in this journey as they become a mum or not a mum, and to continue their career alongside motherhood, essentially. And we're addressing all sorts of things from the juggle to self-confidence and all of that sort of stuff. So it's nitty gritty.
Yeah, busy. So what prompted you to want to, what was your background? Have you always run your own business? Or
Before I set up my business, I worked in HR for about 20 odd years.
Wow.
And I was working in global and local roles. And I think from that position, I really saw the challenges for businesses of supporting and enabling women generally, but also particularly through that maternity transition. But I also saw the challenges for women. And I think when I became a mum, the challenges for mums became even more obvious.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, from the position of the HR space, I saw sort of enormous benefit as well for the business and the women if we can just sort of muddle through this a bit better together. So, for example, we know that businesses that have better gender diversity perform better. That's researched, it's fact, it's real. But we also know that when there's equality at home, there's better financial stability, there's better marital stability, i.e. less divorce, and it's better for child development. So there's like huge benefits all around to having more women working and more women in leadership roles. And I think I just knew that I really wanted to dedicate time to this kind of cause, if you like, because I want my kids to grow up in a different space than we're in, where it feels less of a fight, because often it does at the moment. So yeah.
So fairer society. I think that's what a lot of us are hoping for and working towards. So, so you launched your business after you had children, and then you sort of going in supporting businesses and individuals navigate motherhood and career. So talking today about self-care and self-compassion, and we touched well in the event blurb and invitation about an inner critic. So it'd be good to get, what is the definition of an inner critic?
So I'll share what I see as the inner critic through my work. So these are the voices that we hear in our heads, normally the ones that pop up when we're feeling a bit downbeat, or we think we've done something wrong, or there's a conversation that's not gone as well as we would have liked. And it sounds a bit like, you're never going to be good enough at that, or you'll always fail, so why bother? Or no one appreciates how hard you work. Those sorts of things, or you're lazy, you're stupid. They're the ones that have been going on in my head recently. Or you're not a good enough mother, you've got your priorities all wrong.
Yeah,
you can probably kind of
I think we must all have, you know, I'm nodding my head, I'm like, I've definitely had that probably on the last day, at least in the last week. I think I've definitely, I bet so many people are nodding along.
Yeah. So these are a really well integrated pattern of negative thoughts, beliefs, attitudes that we have about ourselves, and they kind of pop up. And the thing about them is that they really lower our self-confidence and our self-esteem. They can make us anxious, and they kind of prevent us from performing to our best in whatever way performance is for you, whether it's being a mum or in your career or both, or whatever it might be. So they're kind of mean, horrible, pesky voices in your head is probably the easiest, best way I can use to describe it.
Yeah. I've seen some people, I think, on Instagram or something like that, where people have said, you know, would you ever talk to a friend like you talk to yourself?
Exactly. Yeah, this is real, and that's the self-compassion bit that we should definitely talk about.
Okay, so what's the difference? What sort of self-compassion then? How does that tie into?
So self-compassion is like almost like the antidote to the inner critic. It's self-compassion is like a state of mind, and I think quite often rather like self-care, self-compassion can be seen as something that's quite sort of soft and fluffy, but actually it's anything but that. It's very much linked to better emotional, physical, mental well-being. And it essentially describes a sort of positive, kind of caring attitude that you have towards yourself. So where the inner critic is mean and horrible and wants to punch you around a bit, the self-compassionate side of you is much more caring, kind. It's not to say that it's kind of all, oh, okay, everything's going to be okay. It's about saying, yeah, you're having a tough time, be kind about it, and now let's work out what the path forward is. So it's almost like a kind of a firm, tender voice rather than a mean, horrible voice, I suppose is the best.
That's my dog. Sorry about that.
And I was just going to say, and actually one of the there's a lady called Kristin Neff who she's like the queen of self-compassion, and she actually describes self-compassion as that idea of treating yourself as if you would a friend, because when a friend messes up, you don't kind of go around and beat them around the head. You kind of say, hey, what's going on here? This happens to all of us. Now, what do you need or what do you want to enable you to move forward? So, yeah.
It sounds like it's because if you say you're obviously an expert as well, and you experience, your inner critic as well. So it's something that is it something we always carry with us, but therefore we've always got to work on?
Yeah, I would say it probably is to some degree or another. Equally, I definitely think that we can do a lot to calm it and quieten it. It's something that our self-compassion as the antidote to the inner critic is something that we develop and we have to practice. That's almost like the good news and the bad news. The good news is that it's something that we develop, so we don't have to be born with it to enable us to do it. It's absolutely something that we can learn. But on the bad news is it's a bit like our fitness. We can't suddenly run a marathon from sitting on the couch. Well, most of us can't anyway. It's something that we have to work at on a daily basis, ideally, to make sure that it gets quieter. And there's massive benefit in doing it. As I say, like it's linked to your physical, emotional and mental health. So it's really, really, really important.
And does your inner critic, obviously we're women, and I think there'll be a lot of women that are watching it. Is it something, the inner critic comes up more at certain times of the month? Is it something
Oh, good question. So what I do know, so from the research, is that women tend to be far more compassionate to others than they are to themselves, which is different to men who tend to be far more compassionate to themselves than they do to others.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So that itself is interesting, I think. And the other thing for us in the UK, I'm not sure how, like, you're broadly in the UK, right?
Yeah, I think most people.
Yeah. So there was a recent study that was done. It was a sort of cross-cultural study where they found, I think they looked at 17 different countries from east to west, like all over the world. And the UK ranked pretty much at the bottom for our levels of self-compassion. So women in the UK are almost in a even worse spot, because not only are they not very compassionate to themselves because they're women, but they're also in the UK. And I haven't delved into the research to understand exactly what it is, but you can imagine, you know, our society and culture is very much stiff upper lip, don't complain, la la la. So you can imagine that some of that ingrained stuff probably leads to some of it.
Interesting. That is really interesting. So so we know what an inner critic is. We talked a little bit about self-compassion and self-care. So where does this inner critic come from? Is it something, are we born with an inner critic? How does it develop?
Okay, so the inner critic is a voice from the past, and it's formed from your experiences as a child, so from your upbringing, and it's essentially sort of the beliefs, the values, and your past experiences that happened to you when you kind of weren't in a position to question it because almost you were too young. And what happens is it got embedded in your subconscious at a really young age. So psychologists think that by the age of 7, which is really tiny, but by the age of 7, most of our patterns of behavior, habits, thoughts are formed, which is quite kind of thought-provoking as a mother of a I
was going to lead on. That was going to be my next question, so I'll let you. Yeah.
You know, so it gets embedded, and then as we get older and we become more kind of capable of challenging that and understanding that what was told of us when we were little isn't absolute, that it, you know, there are other things, and then we can start to challenge it. And actually, so when you start to tune into your voice, very often what happens is that you notice a familiar voice from your past. So, and it is very often a parental figure of your childhood. And I say parental because not all of us were brought up by a mum or a dad. We were brought up by a grandparent or, you know, some other carer. So, you know, it tends to be that voice of the past. And for me, actually, I've got some voices of friends, which are quite loud as my inner critic. So, yeah, but I think what's lovely about that is because we know that it's somebody else's voice, it almost allows us and gives us permission and enables us to then have the power to change it because it's not ours. That makes sense.
So, so as I mean, most people watching this probably are mums. So as mums, a parental figure now, we have a lot of responsibility to make sure our children don't develop. Or I mean, I suppose as everybody develops inner critic, but you know, to think about how they manage their inner critic and not contribute to it too much.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know what, I think we've got enough pressure on ourselves already, and I think most of us are, I think every mum is trying to do the best they possibly can, and so I wouldn't want people to go away from this thinking, oh my goodness, I'm wholly responsible for how, you know, for the my child's inner critic. Yeah, you're going to have a part to play in it, and there are people, I'm trying to think of some of the names, but there are people that are on Instagram who, you know, will much more eloquently be able to share with you, therapists and things who will be able to delve into all of this. But there is this sense that actually one thing that we can do is that if we do have inner voices in our heads is to address them for ourselves, because if we've got these inner voices and we're beating ourselves up about it, that may come to play in the way that we kind of manage and handle our kids. So, you know, if they're a bit quieter and we're being kind to ourselves, then you could argue we're being a role model in them being kind to themselves. But also, you know, I think when we're in a better headspace, whether it's for our kids or our other halves or anyone else, then we tend to interact better anyway. So I think I don't want people to put loads of pressure on themselves, but it's useful to have that awareness, right? And there's a brilliant book.
I was like listening to you. I was like, last night, my daughter, she's 4. She's so clumsy. I think she's 4, and she knocked over a drink. And always knocking over drinks. I'm like, you are so clumsy, Emily. I'm gonna have to put you back in a baby cot, give you back baby. And then I felt really bad because my husband came back from work and she was obviously really upset and she started crying, going, Mummy thinks I'm clumsy. And we're talking, and oh my gosh, that's gonna be her in a critic voice. I think she's clumsy.
I don't know all the ins and outs of it because I'm not a psychotherapist or I don't feel wholly equipped to delve into that, but if it makes you feel any better, I have exactly the same conversations with myself when I shout at my kids, which I do because
you feel bad, don't you? Oh, gosh.
Yeah, totally. Because there's the book that I'm thinking of is you may have heard of it, the book You Wish Your Parents Had Read by Philippa Perry.
I'll put the link in. Okay, I'll write that down. The book You Wish Your Parents Had Read.
It's something like that, yeah. And she talks a bit about this in a far more eloquent way than I ever will.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. So we talked a bit about self-compassion. Now, what tools and strategies and how can we use self-compassion then to quieten our inner critic and live, I suppose, happier lives ultimately?
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. I think, we just want to all be a bit happier and more joyful, right? Like, life's hard enough, so we don't need to spend time beating our own selves up, right? So I think the thing to say about self-compassion, what I've learned anyway, is that rather like exercise, there are lots and lots of different tools, and some work for some people and others work for other people. So depending on your preference, it's worth having a go at a few different ones to see which one sticks, which one feels like you. I know, for example, my husband really is into team sports, whereas I like team sports, but I also quite enjoy, going to CrossFit, and I quite enjoy going swimming and stuff like that. So, you've got to find the one that feels right for you. There's no right answer here. So I just thought, I could share a couple of ones and, beginner ones, if you like, to get started. And I think the first place always to start is to begin noticing it. That's always the first step, is to notice the inner critic and, just start to tune into it. And as you hear it, just notice what the tone and the language and the words are, and just think about, who is this person? What are you hearing? What are the words that are being used? And as you hear them, what you may very well find is that there is a lot of generalization. So the inner critic loves generalization. By that, I'm saying, like, everybody hates me. Everybody. Like, really, does everybody hate you? In that moment when you're like, oh, I'm never going to be good enough. Like, that never. Are you, or is it just you're not good enough at it yet?
That's such a better way of phrasing it.
So it's just a little bit different. But the first thing is, by noticing it and kind of calling it out, if you like, what you do is you stop it in its tracks, and that, the inner critic doesn't like to be shut up, obviously. So by kind of calling it out, you're sort of stopping it. And then you can just question some of those words. And then, a bit like we were saying earlier, maybe say to yourself, okay, well, this has happened. If my friend was in this exact same position, what would they say? So what would you say to a friend? So what would you say to a friend in that situation? Then once you've got that crafted, say that to yourself. Absolutely. So it's kind of a two-layered thing, I suppose. So notice it, challenge the language that you're using, and then maybe ask, well, what would I say to a friend? And maybe I can apply that to myself as well. What I do with this exercise actually is I've also created for myself, I've visualized my self-compassion friend, if you like. I'm doing this because I have basically, it's a big warming sun who has a kind of a firm but tender voice. And so when I'm kind of in a space where I need a bit of kind of nurturing from my self-compassion. And I kind of think of the bright sunshine kind of beaming down on me, saying these kind words, and it kind of diminishes my inner critic, who is, by the way, a little kind of pink doll. You know those wooden dolls that you kind of push up and they kind of collapse. You know the ones I mean.
I think I know which ones you mean. Yeah.
Anyway, basically, she's a little wooden doll who's got a bit of fight and fire in her with long pigtails. So that's my inner voice that kind of comes up here, and the warm sun just kind of melts her away essentially. So and puts her away for a bit. So that can be quite nice if you're into the visual kind of. Yeah. Another way to do self-compassion is meditation and mindfulness. Now, I know from my clients that this is not everybody's cup of tea at all, but even as bringing a bit of mindfulness, which is being present in the moment. That's what mindfulness is. So being aware of being present in the actual moment as it's happening. Can be something that you can practice every day, and it's super, super easy and doesn't require you to sit. There's lots of thoughts that meditation is just sitting in quiet space, but you can bring mindfulness to any everyday activity. So thinking about, I don't know, brushing your teeth or having a cup of tea, or one of those things early on in the day that you do every single day, and pick an activity and then choose a sensory experience around that activity. So if you think about maybe taking a shower, you might just step into the shower and really just sit and notice the warmth of it, or the coolness of the water, how the water lands on your skin, how the water maybe rolls off your body as it kind of comes down, and being really, really present, noticing how that feels on your body. Now, your mind is going to wander. It's like, that's wholly natural. It's going to go off somewhere. Have you packed the kids' lunch or whatever it might be? That's okay. Just as you notice that it's disappeared, come back to the shower, notice the water again, notice how it's falling on your head, so on and so forth. And just keep bringing some gentle awareness back to the shower. And just try and do that for maybe 2-3 minutes. Next day, try and do it for maybe 4 minutes, but you kind of do it for a week, maybe 2 if you can, and just notice how that affects your life. And it can be quite profound. For a lot of people, it enables people to feel much calmer. It starts the day off in a really kind of calm, gentle way, which is really lovely. And can also, because your head is always, there's always tons of people in the shower with you, but by getting rid of them and instead focusing on you, it can just, it can do some magic with those voices as well. So that's another one that you can try, and pick any activity that works for
that's
you.
a nice one, isn't it? And it does get you sort of ready for the day and stuff. Like you said.
And even better, choose something that gives you real joy. Like, for me, I love that first cup of coffee in the morning. There's something just ritualistic in it for me, which I just love. And so it's quite nice just to take a moment at the beginning of each day just to be really present in it. So it's really, really nice. Oh,
I like that. Lovely. What really nice tip. It's really nice. And especially, actually, you know what, I've forgotten what the word, the word they have in Scotland, is it Heige or something? It's all about and making your home your sanctuary. Reminds me of it.
Totally. And in fact, self-care and some self-compassion might be even just, the cream you put on your hands, or, all of that sort of stuff. Really, really nice. In fact, if you want more stuff on self-care, the lady to look up is Susie Redding, if you don't already follow her.
Okay.
She's a total legend in this space. Really, really love her. The other one that I wanted to share with you is just about writing, otherwise known as journaling. And I know for me, I think journaling gets a bit of a bad rap, but if you think about it as just writing, this is actually one of my personal favorites, and I like it because the very act of writing sends a signal to your brain to tell them that tells your brain that you're processing stuff. And it can be really nice if you're, if you've got a particularly loud voice, which, for lots of women, it's I'm not good enough, or you're not good enough, however it might be. You can just take a moment, if you hear it cropping up, if you've got the time, or at the end of the day, just kind of taking yourself into that point and just writing down. So 3 things to do. Write down how it is that it's making you feel, but do it in a really accepting, judgmental way. So it's making me feel rubbish, I've got stomach cramps, whatever it might be, and just accept it for what it is. Then just write down the ways in which it makes you human. Because let's be honest, we all, one of the beauties of it is we all have this. We all at moments feel bad about ourselves or beat ourselves up for something, whatever it might be, whatever it might be. So just think about how it makes you just being part of human. And, if there's something particular happened that, caused you to behave in that way, maybe just note that down, just notice it. And then after that, just write yourself some kind words. So thinking back to that friend again, and write some words down about, that are kind and understanding, just as you would a friend. And just that simple exercise might take you 2 or 3 minutes, longer if you want to. But as I say, that can be really helpful. And if you do that a lot, you will start to notice some patterns about yourself, which can be really helpful. But also you're just processing that inner critic and putting it away for a little bit, which is quite nice.
Good.
Yeah,
brilliant. Such good advice. And Gauri said she loves that book as well, the book You Wish Your Parents Had Read. So I'll put the link to that. I'll find the link on Amazon or Waterstones or whatever and put the link on. But where can people find you, connect with you if they want to learn more about you and your business and how you can help?
So I'm generally in 3 places. There's my website, which is just alicedarbyshire.com. In fact, everything is my name. Everything's my name. But you have to be careful how you spell it, because Derbyshire is quite often spelt with an E, like the UK county, but it's with an A. So it's alicedarbyshire.com is my website. I'm on LinkedIn as Alice Darbyshire, and I'm on Instagram as Alice Darbyshire. So and just I'd love to hear from anyone who.
Brilliant. Brilliant. All right. So I'll put all the links to how people can find you, connect with you, put the links to the book, and also Susie Redding as well, if people want to delve a little bit more into the subject. But it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today, Alice. I've learned so much. And I think we all have, going to definitely take away all your tips and strategies and hopefully be a bit kinder to ourselves. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. I just thought of one other person that might be putting in the notes is Anna Martha. Have you heard of her?
No.
So she's on Instagram, Anna, and then her surname is Mathur. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
But she's written a really great couple of books around self-worth and being a mum and stuff like that. It's been a little while since I've read them, but I follow her on Instagram, and she's always got some really cool, useful words of wisdom. So she's another one maybe to add to the list.
Brilliant. People are saying it was a great listen. Thank you. So thank you to everybody that has watched today. I hope that you've all found the session useful, and thank you so much, Alice, for your time, because I know you found the session useful as well. So thank you.
Thank you. See you later, Liz.
Thank you. Bye.